Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a foundation review and we are going to be looking at the L'Oreal Age Perfect Creamy Powder Foundation. I have this in shade 300, and then I have the L'Oreal Age Perfect Radiant Concealer. In this one I have shade 200 Ivory. Neither of these are new to me or new to my channel. I featured these summer 2021 on my channel, I believe is when I featured these. I've been using them for now almost a year, if not a year, and watch the video and find out my opinion. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. I've already prepped my skin for today's makeup, and I've used my entire morning skincare routine as well as the Rohto Mentholatum Skin Aqua sunscreen. So my skin has a nice luminous tacky base. I'm gonna be using the Flower Beauty Celestial Supernova Priming Whip. Something I love about this primer is it has like this pale lavendery gray undertone. It is a little messy. It is best applied with your hands. I like to really work it in between my hands, and a little bit goes a long way. So I like using this just to spread all over. And since this is being applied in more of a kind of slap and dash motion, I feel like it does best when you give your sunscreen ample time to sit on. So I did my morning skincare routine about an hour ago. Since I'm using a powder foundation this week, I like to apply liquid or cream concealers first, and the concealer that is being featured this week is the L'Oreal Age Perfect Radiant Concealer, and I use shade 200 Ivory. So little doe foot applicator, and one thing I really like about this doe foot is it's quite a small, thinner doe foot. Now, this concealer, it is a thinner concealer that wants to dry down a little bit more quickly, so I'm gonna blend it out with a blending brush. This is a Morphe M330. And applying or blending out concealers with a brush like this is something I did a lot when I first started out in makeup, and then over the years, between trying different concealer brushes, using my fingers, I got away from using eyeshadow blending brushes like this for concealer, but this week I was like, you know what, let's try it out again. And you can see how smooth of a blend it's created. It has these synthetic bristles that are a little bit, they're not as smooth or as soft as something like a BK Beauty synthetic brush. This allows me to really drag out concealer so I can really spread it out. Love how smooth this concealer is. I think I applied too much, so I'm gonna blend this out so it doesn't set into like a glob when I go to put the foundation on. Really nice. I can't get over just how beautiful this concealer is. So on this side, I'm gonna be a little bit more sparse. So I'm gonna apply 3 dots and 1 out here. So there we go. There is the concealer on both sides, and I'm such a fan. Since I know that the level of foundation coverage that this foundation gives me, I'm gonna take a little bit more of the concealer just on the areas of concern where I want a little bit more coverage, and I'm gonna blend them out with that same Morphe brush. But the trick for facial blending, very similar to how I would do it with a typical brush, I apply a dot, roughly blend it out to where I want it to be at the end, and then leave it, and then go through and blend out some different areas. That's gonna help the concealer dry down a little bit. Most of your liquid and cream products that set down, they have something called a volatile silicone in them. So as they sit, they will evaporate, and then pigment becomes a little bit more concentrated and more set down. So by applying it, blending it, and then letting it set before blending it out all the way, you're just gonna get a little bit more mileage out of your product. So now that it's roughly where I want it, I'm gonna go back and do my final blend by using my finger. I'm using my middle finger to almost press and blend. In my beginner-friendly makeup series, the first video I posted was all about applying foundation, and I talk about the importance of finding the proper marriage between your foundation, your primer, and your skincare. And this primer combination powder trio really came from that methodology and seeing how different things work together. Because a lot of times I don't use a primer. So when I do use a primer, I normally have a good understanding of how my base makeup foundation concealer is going to work with my skincare. And then I can reach into my little selection of primers and grab the one that's gonna help mesh those needs together or fill in any gaps that are missing. Very happy with that. So there is the L'Oreal Age Perfect concealer around my eyes and some center points in the middle of my face where I want more coverage. Let's go back onto the star of the show, which is the L'Oreal Age Perfect Creamy Powder Foundation. I have shade 300 Ivory. There aren't a ton of shades in this formula, but the shades are quite adaptable, and I've talked about the liquid foundation or the serum foundation on my channel before, and in that video I did use this as a setting powder. This is a beautiful, beautiful product to use as a setting powder, but it also works really well as a powder foundation. So I'm gonna be using my Bare Minerals Beautiful Finish brush. Much like I would apply Bare Minerals, I'm gonna start by stippling over where I want coverage. Now that I've stippled all over my face, there's gonna be a little bit of product left in my brush. So I'm gonna go back in and now use the product in my brush to start blending out that stippled layer. This is almost like playing connect the dots with what you stippled on, and it's gonna allow you to get more of a smooth finish with your foundation. With powder foundations, I just really, really believe the more you work them into the skin, the better they're gonna look. Over my eyes, I don't generally like to do a lot of buffing. I can go back in with a smaller brush and buff if I need to, but buffing like this, just gently over my skin, it's gonna really help to mesh everything. You can already see from this side to this side, things are just looking a little bit more perfected. Here, I need a little bit more coverage, so I'm gonna buff over a little bit more. My chin's looking a little ruddy still, so I'm gonna take some more powder, stipple over, and then I'm gonna buff over. To my knowledge, the shade 300 Ivory is the lightest shade currently available in the L'Oreal Age Perfect Creamy Powder. It's a little too yellow for me, so part of my thought process is I like more of a radiant hydrating primer when I'm using a powder foundation. So using the Flower Beauty Celestial Priming Whip, this has more of that kind of muted purple undertone. So if we think about the color wheel and opposite colors, purple is opposite of yellow. So adding something more yellow on top of something more purple should give me more of a neutral base. And I think that's worked out really well. I'm gonna build this up a little bit more right out here. My ears are looking a little red now, so I'm gonna take whatever's left on my brush and buff over my ears. Here's 1.5 layer of the L'Oreal Age Perfect Creamy Powder Foundation, buffed all over. The shade Ivory is a little dark for me. You can see things are just looking a little bit darker here, although if you're seeing what I'm seeing, then in the camera, everything is looking pretty close. I'm gonna finish off the rest of my makeup off camera, and I will be right back to give you the final rundown and all the stats on this powder foundation and the concealer. The rest of the makeup is on, so let's get into the details of the L'Oreal Age Perfect Powder Foundation and Concealer. Starting off with the product of the day, the L'Oreal Age Perfect Creamy Powder Foundation. I have shade 300 Ivory. Here in Canada, this retails for $19.99, and you get 9 grams of product, which breaks down to $2.22 per gram. Currently, this is available in 8 shades, so great shade range. Not really. I think in other parts of the world there are more shades, but here in Canada we have 8 shades, and I have the lightest shade, which I can make work for me, but worn by itself, built up, it's quite a bit darker and more yellow than my skin tone. Being a powder foundation, I do agree that this is a little bit more radiant or a little bit more luminous of a finish without looking too shiny or sparkly on the skin. Whenever I think about radiant powder foundations, there was one I think MAC had several years ago. It was like a split pan powder. I don't remember what it was called, but one side was matte, one side was shimmery, and it was like a highlighter marketed as a powder foundation. Almost like the Huda Beauty Glowish powder foundation. That was just way too luminous. This is more of a soft luminosity, almost a satiny finish. I think a lot of people will enjoy this, that it does have a soft bit of luminosity to it, but it doesn't feel as heavy or as drying or as kind of weighty on the skin as a traditional powder foundation. Some things that some people might not like about this, if you compare this something to like the L'Oreal I think it was the Infallible Fresh Wear Powder Foundation. This does not have the same level of coverage. This, I feel like it kind of maxes out at a light medium, teetering on medium coverage, which now I have it built up pretty much all the way. And you can still see like spots of hyperpigmentation. And if I didn't put the concealer underneath, you would still see redness on my chin and around my nose. So it doesn't have a ton of coverage, but if you're someone who likes a lightweight coverage, or you like to use something like a setting powder that has just a little bit more coverage added to it, this could be a great option. Let's move on to the L'Oreal Age Perfect Radiant Concealer. I have shade 200 Ivory. This retails for $17.49. You get 6.8 ml of product, which breaks down to $2.57 per ml. This is available in 16 shades here in Canada. And again, there might be a few more shades in other parts of the world, but here in Canada, we have the 16. I love this. This for me is a concealer I really enjoy. I have recently put together a video where I talk about some of my favorite like top shelf foundation and concealer products that I keep here at my desk that I can grab and reach for whenever I need them, and I don't have to search through everything to find my top favorites. This is one of those. The color, not the greatest. This shade pulls a little too yellow for me. The next shade up is the right undertone. It has more of that pinkiness to it, but it's too dark. And even though the undertone's off with this one, I can make it work. I don't feel the need to buy both shades and mix them together. I think this is a nice concealer with a solid medium coverage. You can sheer it down, you can build it up. It's quite flexible. It does dry down pretty quickly. So if you're someone who is a slow blender, or you're someone who is sensitive to like volatile silicones and products, or if you're someone who's sensitive to some of those alcohols and products that are designed to help products sit, this is not the one. Now, if you compare this to something like, I think they had an Infallible Glow Concealer that was out a while ago. That one, it dried down so quickly. It had such like a strong alcohol-y kind of scent to it that it would irritate my eyes if it was too close. And I declared that long time ago. So this, in my opinion, does a similar job, but it has a little bit more coverage and it's easier to work with without that irritation that the scent could give. So I really love this. I think most people out there would enjoy this shade range. A little lackluster, but hopefully in the future they will expand it. So I think this is a win. Anyone looking for a really nice drugstore concealer who likes a nice solid medium coverage, I think you would really enjoy this. There is another foundation and concealer review in the books. I feel like overall this week was a success. The previous foundation review I did was my Bare Minerals Original Powder Foundation. Is this foundation going to beat that for me? No, but I love this powder foundation, and for me it's a nice one to grab and go, especially on days where I'm wearing something like a tinted SPF and maybe I want to sit down some shine or add just a pinch of coverage. I can use this, or I can use this to kind of layer it up and kind of conceal where needed. I love this concealer with different concealers, different foundations. It's a very reliable concealer. So I feel like if you try out these products, if you can find a shade that works for you, I think they would be a nice one that most people will enjoy. So if you have tried either of these, let me know in the comment section down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next entry and to see what my top shelf favorite foundations and concealers are. I will see you all in the next video. Bye y'all.